Welcome back everyone to another reaction video as I am just sitting here thinking about the Roman Empire, as one does from time to time. Specifically, one of the things that has always really amazed me the most about the Roman Empire is their engineering, their ability to build things and build things quickly that not only were effective but lasted in many cases to the present day. It's really impressive stuff, and I saw this video in my recommendeds. It's Ancient Rome's Most Incredible Engineering Achievements. So in a world where they had a lot of incredible engineering achievements, these are going to be some of the most incredible. So I'll put the link down in the description. This is from the channel Sideprojects. I know some of you are big fans of Simon Whistler, others hate him. Either way, it's a great topic for us to talk about, so let's go ahead and dive into this one.
The streets are alive with the sound of sandals slapping against stone, carts creaking under the weight of goods, and voices shouting in Latin, orders, bargains, gossip. Above it all, Aqueducts tower, carrying water across the landscape with a precision that seems to defy the ancient age. This is the beating heart of ancient Rome, an empire that didn't just conquer lands, but bent nature itself to its will and redefined what was possible. Rome wasn't built in a day, but what they built has...
So that's the Roman Forum right there, and actually right over here you're going to have the Senate House, the one that was built by Julius Caesar, but not where he was assassinated. You've got the Temple of Vestas down in here. This was the Basilica, and this was kind of their big town hall meeting area. Really, really cool place to explore.
Outlasted the centuries. Roads that stretched beyond the horizon, aqueducts that defied gravity, and structures that remain engineering pearls to this very day. At its peak, Rome was a dizzying, astonishing place to be, quite unlike anywhere else on Earth.
Simon looks like he's bulked up a little bit there.
And today we're going to look into some of the most incredible things about it. Alright, let's start with something deceptively simple. Roads. Today, a cracked highway or detour can derail your day, but back in Rome's heyday, their roads weren't just infrastructure, they were the empire's lifeline.
Yeah.
And they were built to last. Rome built over 400,000 kilometers, that's 250,000 miles of roads, more than the distance from the Earth to the Moon, by the way. Of these, about 80,000 kilometers, that's 50,000 miles, were paved with stone, connecting cities, ports, and military outposts across 3 continents. These roads were not just functional, they were masterpieces of engineering. And the secret...
And this is one of the things that I think we need to consider when we're analyzing different empires. And why, for example, the Roman Empire lasted as long as it did. One of the key components to that was that as it expanded, it didn't just expand really rapidly. As they were expanding their territory, they were assimilating it into the Roman Empire. And I don't mean just culturally and militarily, but infrastructure as well. Building roads, making it connect in ways that make it easier to move your troops and to move supplies and to move trade goods. This is what sets it apart from a lot of the other empires that expanded rapidly but then fell apart almost as rapidly.
But to it all was layers. Roman roads weren't just stones slapped onto dirt. They were layers built with a meticulous multi-layer system.
Yeah.
A foundation of heavy stones, followed by smaller stones or gravel, and then sand or cement.
And like a lot of things that we use in our modern day, a lot of the ideas we got about how we engineer things comes from the Romans. Our roads, I'm not a civil engineer, but I know our roads are built in a very similar way today. We've got different layers at different depths. And then on the very top, you have your concrete or your asphalt or whatever it might be, depending on what part of the world you're in.
And finally, they'd be topped with large, flat paving stones. The results were roads that could handle centuries of traffic, from horse-drawn carts to marching armies.
Yeah.
If Roman roads were the empire's veins, their aqueducts were its arteries, carrying life itself, water. Fresh, clean water ran from distant mountains to the cities, towns, and baths that defined Roman civilization. The scale here is pretty ridiculous. Rome's aqueducts spanned hundreds of miles, delivering millions of gallons of water every day. The Aqua Claudia, for example, stretched over 69 kilometers, that's 43 miles, and had a capacity of approximately 50 million liters, or 13 million gallons of water per day, supplying fresh water throughout Rome.
So crazy.
It was completed in 52 AD, meaning it's not far off being 2,000 years old. And don't think that these were constrained to the glories of the Roman capital. The Pont du Gard in modern-day France transported 20 million litres or 5.3 million gallons of water daily from a spring near Ugez to the Roman colony of Nemalsus in modern-day Nîmes, a distance of 50 kilometers or 31 miles. It also is gloriously beautiful and built with 22,000 tons of limestone blocks cut and precisely fitted together without using mortar.
I'm getting ready to go to Egypt. In fact, this is one of the last videos I'm recording before I leave. And it's so easy to think, well, the people of 4,000 or 6,000 years ago or whatever it might be just weren't very smart, didn't have the knowledge we have today. But look at some of the stuff that they built. Look at the pyramids in Egypt. Look at what the Romans were able to build 2,000, 3,000 years ago. 2,000, I guess. Incredible stuff, incredible technology. You go to Pompeii and you can see their water lines that ran along the street, and you can see the little spots where they repaired the metal on the water lines. You know, running water, sewage, heating systems for their home, underfloor heat that they had, fast food. So many things that we think are modern inventions that go back thousands of years.
Few structures are as synonymous with Rome as the Colosseum. Rising like a stone giant from the city's heart, this massive amphitheater wasn't just a place for entertainment, it was a stage for the empire's power, brutality, and engineering genius. The Colosseum had and still has an extraordinary wow factor. Completed in AD 80, the Colosseum could hold up to 80,000 spectators. That's the equivalent of a modern sports stadium designed with the same priorities: efficiency and spectacle. The Romans were masters of crowd control, and the Colosseum had 80 entrances, allowing it to be filled or emptied very rapidly.
Yeah, and you can even see on, like, basically what their version of tickets were, which are like these little coins, these little tokens, and it would say which entrance you went into. So you knew, I mean, just like a modern ticket. If you go to a football game over in England today, it's going to tell you go to gate 23, and that's where you go in to be able to see the game. So you had all of that. You had different tiers for, like, right here is where you would have like the senator sitting, where you see the white marble there. The thing could be completely drained of people in like 15 to 20 minutes. It was incredible technology. Built it in 8 years, and has stood for centuries.
The Colosseum's engineering was groundbreaking. Beneath the arena floor lay the Hypogeum, an underground network of tunnels and chambers used to house animals, gladiators, and elaborate props. With a system of pulleys and trapdoors, wild beasts could be released into the arena as if by magic.
If you've seen the movie Gladiator, you see where they like have elevators that raise things up from underneath, and they have the ramps where animals would come up. All totally true. They absolutely had that stuff. It's remarkable.
Creating jaw-dropping moments for those in attendance. The floor itself could even be flooded for mock naval battles.
That was only really early on, before they built all the stuff underneath. They believed that when the system was set up for them to do water battles, they could fill the Coliseum floor to about 4.5 feet of water in about 20 minutes. But very soon after the Colosseum was built, when they started building all that stuff underneath, it wouldn't have been possible, they don't think, anymore to do the water battles.
And then there was the Velarium, an ingenious system of retractable awnings that provided shade for spectators. Operated by a vast team, these massive sails were a feat of engineering in their own right, demonstrating that no detail was too small for the Romans to perfect. Today, as tourists wander its corridors, it's easy to marvel at the structure's enduring power. But this was also a place of thousands of grim deaths. The Colosseum story, like Rome's, is one of contrasts: beauty and bloodshed, innovation and exploitation.
And one thing should be pointed out about the Coliseum is it wasn't being used all the time. It wasn't like there are 50 events every single year. Sometimes there would be special events, like when it opened, they had hundreds of games. And they had a very specific kind of schedule to these things, right? They'd have animal hunts, and they would have, almost like a circus parading these animals around. And then you'd have gladiator contests, and you'd have your public executions and different things like that.
So what's the secret ingredient that helped Rome build an empire that still stands
Concrete.
millennia later? It wasn't marble or stone. It was concrete.
Yep.
You probably walked past 1,000 concrete structures in your life without giving them a second thought, but Roman concrete, or opus caementicium, wasn't any concrete. It was a game changer, and it literally built the empire.
And I think the secret ingredient was volcanic ash of some kind.
Roman concrete was made from a mix of volcanic ash, lime, and rubble. Simple ingredients, but the results were nothing short of miraculous. Roman concrete was remarkably durable, unlike modern concrete, which can crack and crumble over time. In fact, many Roman structures have stood for over 2,000 years, while some modern buildings barely last a century. The secret lies in the volcanic ash. When mixed with water, it created a chemical reaction that made the concrete stronger over time, especially when it came into contact with seawater. The Pantheon is perhaps the greatest example of...
What a remarkable building. If you're ever in Rome, it must be seen. It's absolutely incredible.
The power of Roman concrete. Its dome, still the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world, is a marvel of engineering.
2,000 years old.
6.7 meters or 20 feet thick at its base, tapering to just 2.2 meters or 7.5 feet at the oculus, a hole in the center that allows light to stream through. Without Roman concrete, such a massive structure simply would not have been possible. But the Romans didn't just stop at temples. They used concrete to build aqueducts, bridges, harbors, even entire cities. The port of Caesarea in modern-day Israel was constructed using underwater concrete, creating one of the largest artificial harbors of its time. What's incredible is that modern scientists are still trying to replicate the durability of Roman concrete. And this concrete wasn't just a building material, it was a tool of the empire. It allowed Rome to create bigger, bolder, and more enduring structures than anything the world had seen before.
And Rome's engineering is more than just its permanent structures. One of the key components to the successes of a guy like Julius Caesar was their ability to rapidly engineer things. I mean, every time this army traveled, they would set up a whole camp with a forum in the center, and they'd set up walls and towers, and they could rapidly throw up bridges before an enemy could even think about making a structure like that. Their engineering knowledge was remarkable.
So I suppose it cemented Rome's place in history. Roman bathhouses were where their engineering brilliance met the everyday lives of their citizens. These were social hubs, areas of relaxation, and showcases of advanced Roman technology. The Roman baths, or thermae, were feats of engineering disguised as ancient leisure centers. At their core was a hypercaust system, a revolutionary method of heating. Beneath the floors, an intricate network of tunnels allowed hot air to circulate, warming the floors and the walls. Fires in adjacent furnaces, often stoked by slaves, generated heat, and the system was so efficient that bathhouses could maintain multiple rooms at varying temperatures.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. It's nuts. And you go to a place like Pompeii and you can see some of these bathhouses in pretty pristine condition. Or you go to Rome and you see, for example, the bathhouses of Caracalla, which are some of the biggest structure that you'll see anywhere in Rome from the ancient world that still is somewhat standing.
From the steamy coldarium to the lukewarm tepidarium and finally the chilly frigidarium, bathers could move through a carefully orchestrated temperature gradient, an experience as indulgent as it was therapeutic. But the baths were not just about water. They featured elaborate plumbing systems that supplied fresh water and drained waste, keeping the facilities clean and functional. Some of the larger complexes, like the baths of Caracalla in Rome, even boasted libraries, gardens, and exercise spaces. These were more than bathhouses. They were wellness centers, centuries ahead of their time. Soaring aqueducts and imposing coliseums are all well and good, but no society can be considered truly great if they are wallowing in their own filth. Rome's sanitation system may not be the flashiest engineering marvel, but with a population that topped 1 million, it was arguably the city's most important feature. At the heart of it was the Cloaca Maxima, one of the world's earliest and most advanced sewer systems. Initially constructed in the 6th century BC during the reign of the Etruscan kings, the Cloaca Maxima was designed to drain the swampy land of the Roman Forum. But over time, it evolved into a fully fledged sewer network that serviced much of the city. The Cloaca Maxima was lined with stone and later reinforced with concrete, an innovation that Romans perfected. Its massive underground tunnels, some wide enough to walk through, funneled stormwater, wastewater, and human waste out of the city and into the nearby Tiber River.
Yeah, so it's... When you watch this stuff and you think about everything that existed in Rome 2,000 years ago, and then you think back 1,000 years to many of these same places, and they didn't have this stuff anymore. It's one of the reasons why we call it the Dark Ages. I know it has to do with knowledge and how much stuff was being written down, but there's also a real sense that there was an advancement that was going on that it took Europe centuries to get back to. I mean, you're talking getting into the 15, 16, 1700s, and many European cities don't have this kind of stuff still. And it's not to say that Rome was perfect. I mean, they had their slums and they had their rickety 7-story apartment buildings that would often collapse and kill a lot of people. And, not everything was perfect, but they really did have some remarkable stuff. And they even understood hygiene well enough to do things like ban tombs from being built inside the city limits. And so that's why you go out to the Appian Way and you go outside of the Roman walls to see where tombs exist to this day that go back 2,000 years.
What made Rome's sanitation system so incredible wasn't just the sewers themselves, but how seamlessly they integrated with other infrastructure. Public baths, such as the famous baths of Caracalla, were connected to the system, ensuring used water didn't stagnate. Aqueducts, which supplied fresh water to the city, also helped flush the sewers, maintaining their functionality. Then there were the public latrines, a curious mix of practicality and social awkwardness. These communal bathrooms, with rows of stone benches featuring cut-out holes, were connected to the
just picture for a second a room with holes in it all the way around that everybody's sitting and pooping together and kind of like just sitting and looking at each other. That seems awkward and weird to us, but if it was part of your culture and it was just the way things were, it wouldn't have felt that way. Things feel awkward to us because we've grown up feeling that that's an awkward situation to be in.
Sewer system. A continuous flow of water underneath carried waste away, reducing the build-up. For added hygiene, a running water trough in front of the benches allowed users to clean themselves with sponges attached to sticks, although whether that sponge was shared is a question that we'd rather leave unanswered. The sheer scale of this system is mind-blowing. Like, as we've said, Rome's sanitation infrastructure at its peak supported over 1 million residents, a feat unmatched in Europe for centuries after the empire's fall. This wasn't just about convenience. It was a matter of public health. By efficiently removing waste and controlling water flow, the Romans drastically reduced the spread of diseases that would have otherwise ravaged a population of that size. Today, remnants of the Cloaca Maxima still exist, and parts are even functional. It's a reminder that while Rome may be remembered for its conquests and culture, its real genius lay in the details, like keeping its streets clean and its citizens healthy.
100%.
And we'll finish today's video with a piece of construction that no longer exists. In fact, it didn't exist for very long at all, but it stands as a perfect example of how Rome used its astonishing engineering prowess to dominate. The year was 55 BC, and Julius Caesar had just conquered Gaul. But across the Rhine River, the Germanic tribes loomed, a formidable presence representing both a threat and a challenge. Now, Caesar wasn't content to simply defend his territory. He wanted to send a message that no river, no matter how wide or deep, could stop the might of Rome. The Rhine was a massive obstacle. The exact length across has long been debated and no doubt mixed with mythical murmurings, but it was somewhere between 140 to 400 meters, that's about 460 to 1300 feet, 9 meters deep or 30 feet deep, and it had a vicious current. It wasn't the kind of river you casually cross, especially not with thousands of soldiers, horses, and supplies.
And for most of human history at that point, if you could put a river like that between you and your enemy, you were relatively safe. And even going up to the Revolutionary War in the United States in 1776, you have George Washington saving his army by getting across a river and making sure that there weren't adequate boats available for the British to follow him. And the British didn't throw up a bridge overnight and get their troops across and destroy George Washington's army. If they had, that would have been the end for Washington. So the fact that Julius Caesar did this 2,000 years earlier, remarkable.
For most armies, this would have been a logistical nightmare. For Caesar, he saw it as an opportunity. Instead of using boats or waiting for a better crossing, Caesar decided to build a bridge. And he didn't just want any bridge, he wanted it fast, sturdy, and intimidating enough to strike fear into the Germanic tribes. With the help of his military engineers, the construction began. The bridge was built entirely from wood using an innovative and efficient technique. Massive wooden piles were driven into the riverbed at an angle to counteract the strong current. Crossbeams were then lashed to these piles, creating a sturdy foundation. The whole process required precision, coordination, and nerves of steel. But the most incredible part? Caesar's men built this bridge in 10 days.
And that is the unspoken brilliance of Julius Caesar's army. And I'm not saying Julius Caesar himself, he had great engineers working for him. But time and time again, he won battles and won campaigns because of their superior engineering skills.
Modern engineers with cranes and power tools would probably take longer. But this was Rome, an empire built on relentless determination and unmatched ingenuity. The moment the bridge was complete, Caesar led his army across, and the Germanic tribes who had relied on the Rhine as a natural barrier were stunned. Caesar didn't even need to engage in a full-scale battle. The mere act of crossing the river was enough to prove Rome's dominance. After a brief incursion to make his point, Caesar ordered the bridge dismantled, another message to his enemies: we don't just conquer, we choose when to come and go.
Yeah, you build an engineering marvel like that, and then you're like, all right, it served its purpose, we're going to take it apart now. Insanity. I know I've been fanboying over Rome this entire video, but it really just, the more I spend time in that part of the world, the more I look at Roman engineering and Roman history, the more in awe I am of some of the stuff that they were pulling off back then. So what interests you the most about that? What's something that wasn't talked about? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.